Greetings all, FerrariMan601 here. With the release of RaceSim Studios' Formula RSS 1986 V6, we have a trifecta completed. A holy trinity, if you will, has been completed for all of us in Assetto Corsa. The F86, the F90, and the F2000. Those three cars have become absolutely beyond any doubt my favorite things in Assetto Corsa. And they're so interesting to me because they're also different from each other, yet they are all put together with such refinement and completeness, and they offer such a rewarding and fulfilling driving experience. And now that we have this trifecta complete, I really just want to drive all three of them back to back and experience them in comparison to each other and in the context of one another, and just try to demonstrate how different they are, but at the same time demonstrate how you can expect to have an absolutely world-class sim racing experience in each one of them. Appreciating them for their differences, but also appreciating them for the similarities that they share, chiefly the fact that they are all put together in a way that is entirely peerless in the realm of sim racing, because RaceSim Studio, they do such a wonderful job on all of the products that they have given us over the years, but particularly these three in the RSS Classics line. These are really my kinds of cars. I love every single one of them. They're open-wheelers, yes, they are my bread and butter, but these in particular, they just do their thing in some very unique ways that we will explore. But, of course, I have reviewed all three of these cars. Actually, I've reviewed one of them a few times over the years in various different ways. But what I want to do today is not review them, because we've already done that, but I kind of want to put a little bit of a different spin on this, a little bit of a storytelling, role-playing experiment, if you will. What we're doing here today is I am playing the role of a somewhat moneyed, a filthy rich guy, however, ultimately well-meaning. A little bit pretentious, a little bit, well, I can do this because I have money, but at the same time, also passionate about cars and wanting to share the opportunities that he has in being able to own cars like these with a wider audience who would absolutely kill to be able to do this kind of thing. So, kind of a little bit of a story being told, a little bit of role-playing, some interesting things, I suppose, that you might hear in terms of talking to myself, but that's what I'm doing here, so a little bit of a change of pace. The premise here is we have rented out Road America for ourselves for a couple of days, and we are just running these wonderful cars because we can, and you're along for the ride. So, be along for the ride with me for the next, hour and 3/4, 2 hours, something like that. We'll find out as we go, but sit back, relax, and enjoy this holy trinity of RaceSim Studio. Welcome to Road America, provided to us by the absolutely wonderful track maker Lilski. Road America has been in Assetto Corsa for quite a few years now. I want to say we got it in, 2019, 2020, something like that. It's certainly old news, but oh, it is fantastic. You absolutely owe it to yourself to take a look at his Road America and Watkins Glen mods if you do not have them, because they are fantastic. However, here we are with F86, and what can I say? Just a privilege to be able to have a car like this. We've got 600-ish kilograms. We have got ultimately 1,200-ish horsepower out of the twin-turbo V6. We won't quite be running nearly that much here today, but it is absolutely the quintessence of the mid-80s. 1986 this car is from, so there were so few regulations, comparatively speaking, in this era compared to what they've got today that you can almost say that it was a free-for-all. But it is tremendous just to sample what it might have been like to be competing in this era with cars like these. It's just absolutely remarkable, and you can see the detail that you've got on this car. I mean, even a car that is as old as this one is now, the way that it stacks up to the modern ones, you can't even really compare, but for its time, when you give it the benefit of the doubt in terms of where it comes from, it is just fantastic.
in terms of the state of the engineering on this thing. I mean, the suspension here. This is something that is so conventional nowadays, but here, I mean, double wishbone push rod. It's in steel here. It's in carbon on a modern car, but it is still absolutely fantastic to see the workmanship that went into the cars in this era. Little details that you just don't see nowadays so much on the new cars. You've got these Kevlar panels impregnated there in the carbon. You've got little stiffeners that go all the way out to the exterior of the side pod. I mean, again, these are things, maybe some of these details are still on the modern cars, but you just don't see them anymore, and you certainly don't see things like this. Just, there's the radiator just sitting out there, and then you've got the blanking panels, which of course would be adjustable depending on ambient temperatures and things like that. These Nacket ducts feeding the turbocharger intakes, which are literally right there. I mean, you just do not see this on the modern cars. The modern ones are just so put together. There's no other way to describe it. They are just put together, and they're cinched up, and they are absolutely laser straight and just Fort Knox tight in terms of all the detailing. This, it's a little bit more organic still, and that's one of the things that I like about cars of this era. They're just a little bit wild. And, of course, when you drive it, it really exemplifies all of that. But getting in here, you can see the exhaust there, the engine exhaust and turbo wastegate exhaust. There's your rear suspension with its pull rod arrangement rather than the push rod arrangement that you have on the front. I mean, it's just so unique compared to what you've got nowadays. You can see the upright dampers actuated from underneath. That's just ridiculously cool. And then your half shafts out the back of the transaxle there. The gearbox and the differential all coming into one there at the back of the gearbox casing. It's incredible. There's your shift linkage all the way back here. 6 speeds plus reverse. And then if you need to do an oil change or whatever, well, there's your oil cooler there for the gearbox. It's just so unique. Huge wings. It's probably the most unaerodynamic thing you could imagine, but who cares, because you've got 1,200 horsepower in qualifying, and it's absolutely remarkable to see something like this. And, of course, to be able to drive something like this, it's so cool. Really it is. So we're going to strap into the cockpit and give this one a little bit of a run. We have got Road America to ourselves all day long here, so it's really cool. I mean, when you have people for that like I do, being as rich as I am, you can do things like this. So it's really unique. Right, so we're strapped in now, and I've got the mechanics to put a fresh set of tires on. These things are of the era, so who knows how good they actually are anymore, but I think they were surplus from some team back in those days. We were able to find them, and we put them on the car. We actually only did one shakedown on this car once, and it was maybe 3 years ago. So we know everything works. Obviously, we've been through it a couple of times. We had the gearbox opened up, so we know all the gears are in it, and they engaged, all that stuff, and we got all the fluids checked and all that stuff. But, this one hasn't run in anger since the end of the 86 season, so it's very much been in mothballs this whole time, which is really cool. But it does run. We do run them up. All of the cars here, we do run them up once a month just to get all the fluids circulating around. So it is in good order. But, it's not often you actually get the chance to drive them like they're intended. Sometimes we'll run them and we'll just shake them up and down in the driveway, just straight line runs. But you can't really get much speed up here. So being able to use them as they're intended, it's something cool, and we're going to be able to do that today. So let's get on with it. F86, off we go. All right, 1.5 liter engine, twin turbos. Turbos are turned way down right now, just so that we can get some heat into everything and see how we are. But there's first gear punched up, and off we go. I didn't stall it. I'll take that. Okay. So tires are really hard and really cold, and we're full of fuel. This is not qualifying trip, not by any stretch of the imagination. My mechanics have told me don't really go too much past 10,000 on the engine, so I'll listen to them for the most part. And we've got about half of the overall boost pressure available to us if we want it. Maybe a little bit more. Again, I got to think about if they're going to be yelling at me or not when I come back in, so we'll see. We're not running any telemetry, so they won't be able to see everything I'm doing, but they might be able to hear a difference, I'm sure. Brakes are absolutely cold. The tires are absolutely cold. But we've just got everything warmed up in the pits, so everything is nice. Really no dead spots in the rev range. Low down anyway. We'll get it revved up a little bit higher once I get some semblance of heat into everything. And there is just a little bit of water underneath some of the bridges. So that's going to be fun when we start to build up some speed. Not so much under that one, but some of the bigger overpasses here, we've got some water. But yeah, getting some understeer going on here as I'm trying to work the front end a little bit. Obviously, things are cold and full of fuel. The inertia is going to want to just push it straight. All right, let's give this thing a little bit of boost pressure here. Let's go up to 30%. Discretion is the better part of valor after all, right? There's 9,000, 10,000. That's the max that they've let me use on the engine, so we'll respect that. Again, once you start to get too much above 10,000 RPM, you get some resonances in this engine, and it'll run, obviously, but the reliability goes way down. And, you know, a little bit of water off in the curbs there, too. We got to be careful of that. But when we do maintenance on these cars, I mean, obviously we do our best to be good stewards of them, because someday I will no longer own it. Because someday I will no longer be here. But while I do own it, I want to keep it in as good nick as we can, and that's one of the ways that we do it. We, with not so much on this engine, but the next couple of cars that we'll drive, because they're a little bit higher strung, they rev higher, they make a whole lot more horsepower in terms of how much power they make in a proportion to the rev range. The RPM is higher, particularly on the F2000, but they have what we call it an RPM schedule, because obviously without getting too technical, the higher revs you run for a given amount of time, your reliability drops down in this logarithmic scale. So we try to limit the amount of really high RPM running, only because it then means that my guys got to go in and rip the thing apart, and it takes them a few working days to do that, and a couple hundred man hours. So I try to be nice to my guys, so, you know, we respect the RPM schedule as much as we can, that kind of thing. However, we're doing 220 clicks. We're well warmed up, the gearbox feels good. Maybe just getting a little semblance of heat in those tires. Maybe. I mean, there's still plenty of understeer, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of egging me on a little bit. Let's see what we can really do. Let's see, how long do we really try to push the braking gear? Okay, there's water offline here, so we're not going to go too far out. tires off with that little puddle under the Sargento bridge. That's cool. Right, make an apex here. Whoop, tail came out a little bit. For the Corvette bridge, there's a puddle as well. Let's see, still plenty of understeer. Yeah, that puddle there, it's kind of giving me pause a little bit. I don't want to throw it in toward the carousel a little bit too early there, or too aggressively. But let's see, the kink. For the record, I can take the kink flat. I know, I'm doing no speed at all, probably making a fool of myself. But, you know, it's just so unique, and the car just gives you such great emotions as you're driving it, and more water there. But just the fact that you're able to have an experience like this in the modern day, I'm just trying to do my best to convey to you the fun that it really is. We can go a little bit higher on the boost here. Let's go to 50%. Now I really got to watch the shift points. Because again, with that RPM schedule, it's really important, and the higher up in boost you go, the more stress is on the engine. All right. Can actually properly use sixth gear here. There's 250 kilometers an hour. That's cool. Get on the brakes. That's cool. Real nice. Turned in real nice there. There's that puddle under the Corvette bridge, and you can see what it does to the tires. They need a moment to get cleaned up again. Water on the outside there as well. It's not entirely dry here. We had some rain come through overnight, so obviously, in about 8:30 in the morning, it's still there. Got enough heat in the tires now to where it doesn't hurt so much, but still, definitely something to keep your eye on. Right. Had to lift there. Going a little faster this time. 240 clicks. 250. Yeah. Watching for the braking point there. And watch the puddles there. Okay. I gotta come in for a second. I gotta ask the guys a question. Yeah. Pit limiter and all that stuff. See, when you rent out a racetrack, you have to sign away your life in terms of the things that you will and will not do. So Road America, they've got this. Seriously, it's about a 35-page contract that you sign if you want to rent out the track for a test day like this. So. One of the things is the pit lane speed limit. You will respect it at all times and all that, even though we are the only ones here. But I do just want to ask the guys a question really quickly. Yeah, we're good. No issues there. Yep, warmed up nice. Shift is good, and the turbos are coming in nice, but can we go to race boost? Okay. Yeah. Don't worry about that. We could do 70? Okay. Like 2 or 3 laps. Okay. We'll do it. Nice. All right, awesome. Get me started up. Okay, so basically, the long and short of that is we're clear to 70%. They're happy with they're happy to do that. When they rebuilt the engine, they were looking at the seals in the plenum. They were looking at the oil seals in the turbochargers, and they're in good shape. They do need to be changed, but they're still okay. So we're happy to push them a little bit here because the next rebuild we do on this, we're going to change all that stuff anyway. So we're going to go to 70%, which is max race boost on this engine. So that's what we're going to do, and we're just going to start the engine here. Guys look like they're ready. They're just waiting on me. So, all right, off we go. All right, we're going. All right, let's get out here. Okay, so they've cleared us to 70%, which is full race boost. Currently running at 50%. Of course, the tires have lost all the heat, so we got to get that back again. There's a wheel spin there in second gear. And a little bit in third, believe it or not. I think there's a little bit of water on the apex there too. So really, Road America has not dried out. Okay. Yep, there's the water under the bridge. Be careful of that. That was almost very expensive. We are in the town of Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and I understand why it's called Elkhart Lake, because apparently things don't quite dry out around here so quick. Through Canada Corner, we can go to 70% boost, so we're going to do it. There's 70%. All right. Oh yeah, there's definitely more power now. Some wheel spin in fourth gear, believe it or not. Right. 285 clicks. Jumping on the brakes. Yep, there is water on the apex there. A little bit of wheel spin again. Okay. Okay, good. Yeah! There's turbo. Absolutely some turbo. Kicking up some more spray. Careful of this. All right. We got through it. Now there are the skid marks from the last time we went through here, and we're still squirrely. Right. Big lift required for the kink. That's okay. Even in 5th gear, getting on the power mid-corner, you gotta be careful. You really do. This thing will bite you. Up the hill. All right, let's go as quick as we can. That was not a valid time. That was 2:06 something. Let's do what we can to be safe and fast. Let's go. Right. Push the braking a little bit. Okay. Good. Close to the apex as we can. Again, it's wet. It's also wet under the bridge here. Yep. Had to come off of the brakes because you'll lock them in the wet like that. Here's wheel spin. Be nice. Okay. Good. The understeer is tremendous. We're not going to get away from that, I don't think. But it wants to go. I know that there is so much more performance available in this car, but I just can't get it. I can't get it unless I want to pay my guys quadruple overtime to rebuild the engine after 3 laps. And the track's just not there, let's be honest. There's water offline all over the place. And, you know, I'm on old hard tires and who knows what condition they're really in. So I'm happy to get what we can get. Two minutes to 8:89 was our lap time there. I'm okay with that. I know the car can go so much faster. I really know. And a little secret, I have driven it a lot faster than that around here. But not right now. The track's not ready, and quite frankly, the car is not set up for it. They're going to be mad at me for that one. But just the way that it's willing to spin up the wheels, yep, that was wheel spin in 3rd gear. You'll get it in these conditions, on these tires in particular, you'll get wheel spin in every gear, so you just gotta be so careful. There's, there's no way that we can do this. No, that's it. That's all this car can do today. I'm almost sorry to say that, but at the same time, it's fantastic to be able to drive it. Turn the turbo down. And honestly, this is the most mileage it's gotten in a few years. So it's fantastic to bring it out. And it's even more fantastic to share it with all of you because this is a beautiful thing. And one of the things growing up, I grew up in the beginning of the YouTube era and all of that. One of the things that I was always so, I guess, remorseful about was the fact that there were so few videos of people driving cars like these, just out and about privately, being able to finance it themselves and all of that, and just give us a really good impression of what it's like to operate these things. Because I mean, most of these things haven't run since they raced. And that was the case with this one until a couple of years ago. It hadn't run even since the end of the '86 season, but we went through it. We learned its quirks. We fixed little problems it had. And now we're able to take it out and run it like we are. And it's great so far. I mean, we're not really pushing it that hard, but to the extent that we have, it's been flawless. And of course, now we got to do a whole bunch of work on it, and at the very least go through it and make sure we didn't break anything just now. But yeah, we've done good with this car. The car has performed wonderfully. I'm real happy with what we're seeing here right now, where I'm sitting. So I think we're in good shape, and I'll talk to the guys and see how we're doing. Yeah, we're good. Beautiful. Let me tell you, race boost is something. It really can't imagine qualifying. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm ready to get out. Okay, so we're going to get out and deal with that. Back again here with Formula 1990 V12. Yeah, this is only 4 years removed from the previous car that we drove, F86, but I mean, you could not have more of a night and day contrast between these two. I mean, macrocosmically, from the outside, they don't look all that different from each other. They're very much similar dimensions, and of course, we've got, generally the same plan in terms of where things are in a larger sense. But the design philosophy is really shifting nowadays here with this from 1990. Gone are the days of big turbo power. This has a V12 engine, and it is naturally aspirated, which means that we're down on the horsepower figures by nearly 50%, believe it or not. F86 has 1,200 horsepower in theory, qualifying trim. We drove it at about 850, 900 or so, still more than we've got here at the best of times. This one's sitting at about 680, maybe on a good day with the right air temperature, 700. But we're, again, about 50% down on power. But what you get in response to the lack of horsepower, relatively speaking, is aerodynamics. I mean, just take a look at how much more refined this is from an aerodynamic standpoint. And we're just 4 years removed from F86. So, I mean, just the detail work that they have done in here is just on another level compared to F86. I mean, yeah, you still got carbon fiber used here, but you get more of it. You can see that we are now far more concerned with getting the front end as close to the ground as possible. We've got our little sacrificial strakes here, the laminated wooden strakes, so that we can have that burn away as the front wing end fences literally scrape along the ground, so we can seal that, create a little diffuser in the front all by itself, which is pretty unique. And of course, as we go around the car, you can see that we've simultaneously become more streamlined, but also more detailed. I mean, as we go back through here, suspension geometry has changed a bit. We're a little bit wider here. We've still got the double wishbone push rod, and it is still in steel on this car. But again, you can just see how things have been splayed out a little bit more in terms of the track of the car. Inside, though, through the radiators there and the side pods, still the same general plan, but you can see how much more narrow these ducts are on the side pods. And we're doing that because now we're more concerned with drag. Before on F86, we would just happily have big blocks out there in the airstream. We've got enough horsepower to overcome it. Not so much the case here anymore. Now we have to be much more concerned with what are we doing with our frontal area and things of that nature. So much narrower and taller radiator inlets there, and then they're exhausting much higher up on the car as well, so that we can start to use that air to funnel the air inboard toward the top side of our diffuser. You've got the Coke bottle shape. This is something that we've seen on Formula 1 cars ever since this, and to some extent you saw this on F86, but you really see it here on F90 because, again, the airflow and the way that this car is punching through the air is so much more important now. Getting to the back, there you go. There's our diffuser. You can see we still have a blown diffuser, but it's the exhaust outlets have been inset more toward the center line of the car, and they are farther forward than they were on F86. And we have more consistent flow through this diffuser as well because, number one, we're running the car a little bit lower. We've got a wider track. We've got a wider floor. It's a little bit more sculpted aerodynamically. And of course, we've got a larger engine. This is 3.5 liters compared to 1.5 liters on F86, and it's naturally aspirated, so we don't have turbos on this thing. We've got much more consistent flow inside and out at all times in all different throttle and rev regimes on this engine. Similar revs, though. This thing can rev all the way up to about 12.6. We won't quite be getting that high today, I don't think. But again, it's a V12. It is much more of a free revving engine as well than the V6, as you might expect. But mechanically very similar. The biggest departure, though, not in terms of layout, but it's in terms of how things actually are running. We have ourselves a sequential gearbox in this car, 7-speed, and it's a paddle shift box. So all of that is controlled hydraulically, electronically, with the computers on the car. And that makes it a little bit more difficult to work with for us nowadays because, of course, all the software that the car runs is proprietary to the era, and part of the issue is that you need period-correct hardware in terms of computers to interface with all of it. So it's actually been almost as difficult a quest to source the support equipment for this car as it has been to source the car itself. But we've got it. This one, it's a little bit more of a challenge to fire up because it is more computerized with the hydraulics and electronic systems. Particularly for the gearbox, but the engine, it's pretty straight up. It does have the electronic engine management as you had on F86, but it's just that step up in terms of technicality that you've got to account for when you run this thing. But we have done that, and we're ready to go here, so let's get on with it. All right, in the cockpit here in F90, and first thing that you're going to notice is how much narrower things are, because we don't have a gear shift, as it were. We have got paddles on this steering wheel, and that is how we're doing our cog swapping these days. It was not this car, but it was its immediate predecessor, the F89, which introduced that technology on a Formula 1 race weekend, and that is where the development started for this one. The F89 was not nearly as successful as this car, though. This one, some initial teething problems as its predecessor, but ultimately finished second in the championship. So that's cool. This is not the actual car, but it is a sister to the actual car that was run up the back by one very famous Brazilian. And was probably the most egregious intentional ramming incident in Grand Prix history. But, yeah, so this car very famous for that reason as well, and therefore it's also very expensive. So in addition to it being very difficult to run as a privateer outfit like we are, it's also rather difficult to support because, well, it's a bit of a unicorn. It is a very, very valuable car because of the provenance that it has historically. But we're here, we have done all of our checks, and we've run everything up. And everything has checked out fine, so it is time for us to go drive this thing. And, yeah, everybody here just waiting on me. Yeah, let's go fire up. All right. Wait for it. Yeah, guys, ready. There we are. And you can see just how everything has changed in just 4 years. I mean, we had a little digital display in F86. This is all digital. We have no steam analog gauges here. Everything is electronic. We've got an LCD that's giving us our tachometer. And we've got lap time. We got engine RPM represented digitally there. And all kinds of stuff. So just as we were with F86, we are full of fuel on hard period tires. So, you know, don't expect too many great things. We've also restricted the revs on this one a bit because, you know, 12.6 is not something that we're prepared to support for a long time on this engine. So, again, RPM schedules and things. But despite having the gear shift up here like we have on the paddles, and at least we've got reverse through fourth gear working, we do still have a foot clutch on this one. So it's a little bit different in that regard. But let's get going before we overheat, just ticking over here. And there we are, long gearing here. And of course, full of fuel and everything is stone cold, so we'll have to be nice to everything. Try to get through the whole box so that we get everything happy and running. Yep. Everything is happy and running. Yeah, you can see here, that's one of the teething issues we have with this car. We have an auto blip protocol, but we don't have it set up right. So the engine braking is all screwy. So on cold brakes and cold tires, it's better just to use the run-out area if you can. So that's what we did there. But we'll be okay. There we are. Sometimes after it goes through the box up and down a couple of times, it will learn what the gaps are between the gears, and it'll stamp itself out on the auto blip stuff. But we have some issues with this car, as you can tell. Yeah. Trying to be as kind to it as possible. There's 7th gear. And again, we've geared this very long for reliability, so we're doing pretty appreciable speed here. That's 240 clicks, doing 7,500 RPM out of a theoretical 12.5, so let's see. We got to stop that time. Lots of understeer. Because not only are things cold, but remember, we're not going really fast enough for the aero to be doing much. We are cleared to 10,000 on the engine, so we'll be using more of that rev range. Again, just, there we go, we got to stop that time, and the auto blip's starting to work. But we will be using more of that rev range as I get a little bit more confidence here. To see what the understeer is doing. All right. But everything's looking good. Instrumentation is doing what it needs to do. All right, starting to feel a little bit of aero there. Doing 250 clicks thereabout. So, yeah. There we go, got some heat in the brakes that time. Again, we're getting into the realm of carbon brakes. They do not like to work very well when they're cold. Saying nothing of how hard these tires are. We're going to use all 10,000 revs now. Not quite able to get into 7th there, ran out of road. But even being detuned a little bit as we have it here, the sound of the V12 is fantastic. There is nothing better in my opinion. All right, the car kind of feels like it wants to come out and play now. Definitely understeer. That's just going to remain because that's the trim we're in. The carousel just gripping, slipping, gripping, not really quick enough for the aero to amount to much. But now it is. The kink should be flat. No, it's not. Not quite. $270 clicks though. Because you're not manipulating a gear lever though, you kind of don't quite have the same sort of visceral cognizance of the speed that you're building up as you go up through the box. It's just a little bit different, just flicking your fingers around versus actually manhandling mechanical components. And that's a 206 and change. I will take it. Okay. Thankfully runoff is there. Gets a little twitchy. Just because we are objectively running slower than the car actually can go doesn't mean that you don't have to pay attention. Okay, a little bit of an overcook, that's okay. I am happy to report that things have dried out since our last run. And even at that, even in these low power settings that we're unfortunately forced to run at the moment, still can get the tail out under power in the low gear, so still have to be mindful of that. Understeer all over the place. But I can say the car is running well. No problems apart from just starting it up there and going through the gearbox the first couple of times. The engine braking doesn't quite come in the way you would expect. What's going on there is the ECU is not quite communicating with the gearbox in those circumstances, so it thinks it thinks it's stuck in a gear as the speed is dropping, and what it's doing is it's cutting the throttles back in
when I don't necessarily want them to because it thinks it's going to stall. And there's no internal starter on any of these cars, so if you stall, it's a problem. So it's trying to save your race basically, but it doesn't work right. At least not when you're just starting out. So again, it's one of the little issues that you've got when you're working with software that's this old and this unique. But just tooling around like this, the engine will be pretty happy to do this for as long as you want. Again, the more time you spend above 10,000 RPM, the reliability drops logarithmically again. So we try to minimize that. That was a harsh shift. Hopefully that doesn't happen too many more times, otherwise I'm going to have to stop the thing. Because again, a few hundred man-hours to do a gearbox and or engine rebuild. It'll take my guys the better part of a week. And that's, of course, not even considering the spare parts that don't exist. So we got to make parts for this car if they break. Okay, I'm going to false neutral here. All right, we'll get first. Yeah, we got first. Yeah. See, I can't let the revs drop too low because then the fuel pump will stop, and then the engine will die. Okay. Okay, all right. Some little issues there. That was in fourth gear. What can we do about that? That was directly from third to fifth. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with that. Yeah. I think we've lost fourth gear here. Yeah, we lost fourth. I think it's time to get the thing back in the pits before something else happens. Like I said, it's a little tricky to run this thing. It's a wonderful car, it really is, but we're so rarely able to run it in the way it's designed to run, and you got to spend all day just doing diagnostics on it, and you know it's of its era. Let's say we can run this thing much better, and we have, but you know it's having its time. Let's say we'll get this one running properly, though. We owe that to you. But in the pits with us, and we'll give our guys the status report. I'm not running telemetry on this one either, so we'll have to let them know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, could you hear it back there? I don't know what happened. The downshifts weren't synchronized at all coming down on the first lap into turn. What they call it? They call that turn 4? Yeah. Yeah, we went off, got reversed. Reverse works, that's good. But we lost 4th. Yeah, just wouldn't go in. Just picked up false neutral, and I got it running again, but couldn't get into 4th. It would slot in, and then there'd be no drive in 4th. So I don't know if we lost the gear or if it's the potentiometer back there or whatever's going on. But it's not. It doesn't sense 4th gear is there. Yeah, we'll figure it out. But yeah, time for me to jump out of here. But you know, it's a really wonderful car. It just we need a little bit more tinkering time with it, I think. But again, we'll get this one running good. We'll eventually have to come back another time and show you how that's going to work, because this is wonderful when it's running on full song. At 10,000 revs, it sounds good, but it can sound an awful lot better. So we'll get this one running good for you. Ah, yes, the final member of this holy trinity, if you will. Formula 2000 V10. This is the ultimate in terms of what we have on offer here today. It is the most high-tech. It is, in theory, the fastest, but not necessarily the fastest, but certainly the most powerful in terms of the naturally aspirated crowd. Of course, nothing is ever going to approach F86 in terms of overall power output when you've got the turbos dialed up. Not even a modern car will do that. But this one is absolutely high-tech to the end. You've got incredibly sophisticated design here aerodynamically. You've got a 3-liter V10 engine, so we're down 2 cylinders and 500 cc's from F90. However, we have got even more horsepower. This one putting out about 800 horsepower in full race trim, and it will rev all the way up to 18,000 RPM. So this thing is absolutely on it. It is super high-tech. It is super high-strung. It is a procedure and a half to get the thing running. You saw the warm-up just before, and that is the culmination of a procedure that started about 3 hours ago in terms of getting this thing ready to run. You can't just kick the thing over cold. And of course, that's the case really for any race car. But this thing in particular, because it revs so high, the tolerances in the engine are so fine that it is seized solid effectively when it's cold. If you tried to turn it over at ambient temperature, you would just absolutely score the hell out of the cylinder walls, and you'd destroy the engine block and the pistons. Yeah, that would be a very expensive thing to do. So you've got to pump warm water through it with external heaters and external pumps. You've got to do the same with the oil. And then, once you got it up to temperature, then you spin it over without actually turning the ignition on, so with the spark off and with the fuel pumps off, just so that you can shunt the oil around through the engine, because of course everything's dry sump. Get the pressure up. You verify oil pressure, you make sure that you've got the right oil levels in sump tank as well as the main oil tank. Then you fire it up, and that's what we showed you earlier. And yeah, it's just a question of watching computer screens and watching your displays in the cockpit, making sure that your temperatures and pressures are all in your acceptable values. And then, at the end of all of that, you jump in and you drive it. It is basically like a space launch, getting this thing ready to go. Even more so than F90, if you could believe it. Similar engineering, though, in terms of F90, but with a twist, because, of course, this is from 2000. So we've had 10 years of design and regulatory evolution. You can see still double wishbone pushrod suspension, but it is now in carbon rather than in steel. We've got a radically different chassis shape, though. This is largely a byproduct of what happened in Grand Prix racing in the 1994 season, where we still had, at that point, cars largely similar to F90, but we had a couple of tragic accidents resulting in fatalities, a couple of other near-fatal accidents in 94 and 95 as well. And ultimately that led to a slimming down of the cars and a big reduction in the underbody aero. So topside aero is how the cars started to do their bidding, and that was all in an attempt to reduce cornering speeds. Also an attempt to reduce cornering speeds, you can see the tires on this one. We have got grooved tires. So it's the only car we've got that does not have traditional slicks. These are grooved, and these were introduced for 1998 to continue to cut down the cornering speeds. And the cars were also narrowed in 1998, again, to reduce the ultimate limit of grip, just because they were still concerned about some of the circuits in this era not having enough run out and things like that. Nothing even remotely approaching what we have nowadays in a lot of tracks. I mean, even here we have some runoff, but the tracks that will host a Grand Prix nowadays that have the Grade 1 license, those things have more runout area than the total area of countries like Monaco. So, definitely it's a change in philosophy, not only in car design, but also in the places where the cars are running. But something like this, to have this at our disposal, it's crazy. Just the amount of detail that you have, it is remarkable. Pylons here holding the front wing together. See the keel below? You have the lower front wishbones mounted to. That was a design trend that doesn't exist anymore. And of course your side pods are now being sculpted, not just so that they house the radiators, but so they don't waste any additional space. Again, still concerned with aerodynamics. We want to reduce the frontal area as much as possible. And then everything else. In-race refueling, so we've got fuel hatches on either side that would pop open, depending on which direction the track was. So, yeah, so many things going on in a car like this. And this one is still pretty much in the spec that it would have been at the end of the 2000 season. This car actually won the Constructors' Championship. So this is the most valuable one we've got as well. So it's the most sophisticated, the most high-tech, the most valuable, the most powerful in terms of the naturally aspirated cars, the highest revving. Yeah, this thing is an absolute mess to get used to running. But we are going to run it. Just like we had on F90, though, we are going to be running it at reduced revs here because, again, these engines, they do not like to run for a year or so between rebuilds, so you got to preserve things while you can. So we are going to run this one. We've maxed it out at 15,000 revs, so again, it can go to 18,000, so we're not quite that crazy with it here, but we've geared it long, so we'll still have pretty good speed out of it. It'll just not quite have the excel that it would have had in period, but it still sounds like the V10 because it's still the original engine and all original everything in the car. And yeah, you'll get a sense of what it was like 23 years ago driving these cars, which still feel modern, even though they really don't have all that much in common with the modern ones any longer. So sitting here in the cockpit, yeah, you can see we have moved on into the digital realm. Even compared to F90, where we had some buttons on the steering wheel, this steering wheel barely looks like a wheel anymore. It is no longer circular. It is roughly rectangular. We've just got two cutouts where your hands go, and then we do not have a continuous rim. It's cut off on top, and we've got all sorts of indicator lights and buttons and switches all over the place. We have 4 paddles on this wheel because we just have 2 pedals down in the footwell. This has a hand clutch, almost like a motorcycle, but works a little bit different, and you don't use the clutch once you are done pulling away. In F90, particularly in the way that we have to run that car now, I'm using the clutch a lot, particularly on the downshifts because of that blip issue, but this thing is pretty much solid state. It will lift the throttle, it will blip, it'll do all of that. We've never had a problem with that. The gearbox is very peachy in this car. But yeah, you can see how we've got everything in here. It is really tight, and it is really crisp, and everything is still pretty much as it was when it was competing. And again, this thing won the Constructors' Championship, so yeah, the engineering in here, just the fit and finish of it all, you understand already just sitting still how it could do something like that. But we are full of fuel. We have got really hard tires on it. Again, tires of the era, so we will see how we get on here. Just got to get the thing started up here. So we'll yeah, we're ready to go. All right, get me started, boys. There it is. Let's see. You can see as we let it idles at a very lazy 3,000 RPM. Ah, boy. Daily driver, believe it or not, I'd be shifting about there. This thing is at idle at 3,000, and you just touch the throttle, and you pick up 2,000 revs in, you can't even blink. This thing will do about 2,000 RPM per eye blink. It's crazy, and of course, without any of the restrictors on it and whatnot, it goes all the way to 18,000 revving that hard. So there's a lot going on here, but we have got to get going. Again, it's a hand clutch here, so it's just a paddle on the back of the steering wheel, and then it's linear. It's like a pedal, but you use it with your fingers. First gear, and then we're geared along, so we gotta be careful with this thing as we get going. And of course, we try not to stall it. Can't let the revs drop too low because just like F90, the fuel pumps will turn off. There we go. Yeah! Alright, let's... Okay. That's what I mean, though. The gearbox is just peachy. Try to get into all the gears. There we go. Into 7th. That's cool. It's a cool 10,000 RPM. Right. And again, we're cleared to 14.5, 15, so we got plenty of revs left. Just trying to get everything happy here, temperature-wise. Nice, things are coming up nicely. There's 11,000. 11.5. 250 clicks there. Doesn't seem like it because you're used to hearing these engines in the historic footage. You're used to hearing these things really screaming, but again, we've tiered it differently.
than it would have been in the day. All right, let's see what it's got down the straight. There's 14 and a half. Oh yeah. Yeah, it'll just keep pulling like that. And of course, it would keep going even harder if we were going to run it all the way. But yeah, we're performing well. I'm happy so far. Some of these corners we're not quite going fast enough to get the arrow going, but some of them we are, and you feel that come in, but you really do feel the groove tires. Like understeer through here. The arrow is working, but the ultimate grip is quite diminished with the grooves. Very interesting. Gotta wonder how the drivers felt when they made that change for 1998. The 1:58 change. Cool. That's our first sub 2-minute lap all day, I think. Yeah. This thing is quick. Here's makes no difference, 300 clicks. That's cool. And the car is just, you know, it's doing it effortlessly. Starting to get a little bit more heat in the tires. Feel a little bit better. A little bit more grip through here now. Pulling some G's. Again, a little bit more grip. End of that straight there, the brakes cooled down a little. They're no longer quite in their optimal zone, so you snatch them. All right, let's use all 15,000. Now at medium speeds, the groove tires in combination with the narrower track, it does make the car a little bit twitchy. So that transitional zone between mechanical and aerodynamic grip, when you get the car into those regimes, it can be a little bit unpredictable, particularly from the rear end, so you have to be aware of that. And of course, this still predates the days of traction control, at least legal traction control. No anti-lock brakes or anything. The only driver A that you have in here is the semi-auto box, really. Still snatching brakes a little bit. Be careful with that. Put the brake bias rearward a little, because of course we have those kinds of toys in here. $154 and change. Yes. A little twitchy again. A little bit too soon on the power. Once that happens, you're done for. You have basically no margin in terms of slip angle on these tires, so once they break, you're on ice. There we go, we got the braking right that time. One more quickish lap and we'll see what we can do here. This car just sort of gets you into the mindset of just wanting to be as precise as possible. It's such a precision instrument that you don't want to be superfluous with it. You just want to use it for what it's intended for and nothing more. You can understand how the approaches of the successful drivers in this era, you can understand why they became so systematic in the way that they approached their craft and their training regimes and everything. Because this was the state of the art. These were the tools that they had to do their bidding, and they are real scientific, almost aeronautical instruments. So they are not all about emotions and passion. They're about precision and engineered approaches to everything. Yeah, that happens too. Power sliding in a V10 Grand Prix car. That's definitely something I recommend to everybody to try once. I also recommend to everybody to spin a V10 Grand Prix car once. We'll be okay here. Pick up a little bit of grass. we go. There we go. You gotta be real careful not to stall it, though. Alright, we're going. Again, the car is not entirely happy running like this. I mean, it's meant to be blaring out at 18,000 RPM all the way into the braking zone and then slamming on the brakes. Not quite doing that today. But even at the reduced pace that we are running, it's still very much giving you an impression of just how good you have to be fast in something like this, and I'm certainly nowhere near that level. I'm just barely good enough not to crash it. But the guys who competed in cars like this, nope. Absolutely not. Not a chance in hell would I have anything remotely approaching the skill level to get on the grid, never mind to be successful. This car humbles you, really does. Alright, let's try not to make any mistakes and just be as consistent as we can through each corner and see what we can do. Understeer and oversteer and understeer again. Give me horsepower, there we go. Okay, just try to pick a steering angle and hold it there as best you can. Use the throttle to turn the car. There we go. Nice. I think I saw 301 clicks there. Yep, tail coming out a little bit. Some understeer, running a little wide. Give me power. There we go. Up the hill. 152.491. I will be happy with that. I will be quite happy with that indeed. It's almost a shame to change gear. The engine sounds wonderful and running great. No problems whatsoever apart from the occasional problem with me. it's just wonderful. And then once you get the speed up and the aero starts to come in, the grip starts to build, and then you feel like you've got something that you can attack the racetrack with. That's where the magic is. We have run it much quicker than this, but, you know, not often, because that gets pricey. Even I have my limits in terms of how much money I'm willing to throw at a given afternoon. Off we go back into the pits. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely great. Runs fine. Nope, no gearbox problems. Just a little bit of a me problem. I don't know how hot the clutch got. Nah, it's running fine though. I don't think I did any damage to it. I think we got away with it. Yeah. So, yeah, the guys are wondering why they heard me basically restart the car out there. I counted a corner where we had our little off, and yeah, we got away with it. We didn't have any gear shift issues, no slipping or anything like that. So I don't think we messed anything up. I think we got away with that one because even the clutch on this car is in the 5-figure price range. So there is nothing inexpensive about any part of this proposition. But yeah, a car from the 2000 season doesn't seem like it would be all that long ago given the state of the electronics in here, but that's 23 years ago. Yeah, some places a car like this could be eligible for historic registration. Not all, but in some. That's quite remarkable, and to still have this level of performance on tap, and we've detuned the thing a lot just for reliability, but yeah, that's something. It's the fastest car we've done, fastest car we've got here today as far as the lap times that we've done. So yeah, it takes your brain out of your body, I'll say that much. So I'm gonna jump out here and yeah, some concluding thoughts on our wonderful day of motoring here with these three absolutely wonderful cars.
What an incredible car that is, and of course, what an incredible car all three of them are, individually and collectively. Just reviewing the shakedown run that we did here as well before we did our piece for camera. Just testing out some onboard cameras and things like that, and it's just so cool to watch this thing work. I mean, I know that I was there in the moment, but even at the reduced pace that we've got here with the rev restriction on the engine and trying to make sure that we keep everything safe and healthy, still, it is a mightily impressive car, that F2000, and again, it's the most sophisticated one that we've got. It's the newest one we've got, despite still being 23 years old now. Remember when we got this one, it was just over 10 years old, so it's been over half of its life here, which is something really interesting to consider. But yeah, there it is. We don't run it all that often, but it is easier to run than the F90, believe it or not, which is a little bit interesting despite being more sophisticated, because I think the technology was just a little bit more refined by this point. That semi-auto gearbox, this was the 11th car that was made here by these guys anyway, to use that semi-auto gearbox natively, so they ironed out all the kinks, and I don't think we have ever had a gearbox problem that wasn't induced by us. The car has been very well behaved. We have not been the most well behaved with it in terms of just trying to learn how everything works, but the car is great, as are all of these other ones. I mean, you've got the F86 that we started with. We've got so much horsepower in that thing, not nearly as much in terms of levels of relative refinement in that one as we have in, say, F2000, but just the torque is really the thing that gets you in that car. It's so powerful, and it does absolutely nothing through the lower rev ranges, but then once the turbos spool up and you have that performance, it's just bam, and it is just firing you out of this naval gun almost as far down the straight as you could go, and then you better hope that the brakes work when you get to the end. So that's an experience in and of itself. Can't imagine what it would have been like in the era when it was competing and then going for all the marbles on a Grand Prix weekend. Just nope, beyond me. F90 as well, what a car. It is more refined, of course, than the F86, simply because it's a little bit newer, but very much of a similar era. Very different design philosophy, though. That one is all about how do we manage drag but still pull downforce out of the air, because we've lost half of the horsepower relative to F86, so that's cool. The V12 engine, it sings so sweetly. It is the best sounding car I've ever driven, and it is always fun to run it. It's never easy to run it, but it's always fun to run it, and we've had the guys go through it, and that problem that we had losing fourth gear, it appears that was just a sensor position thing. There's nothing wrong in the gearbox. All the mechanical parts look okay. We took the back of the casing off, and we slid out the gear cassette just to look at things, and all the teeth are still where they should be, and there are no random bits of metal flying around in the oil, so that's good. So that car is healthy, and we just got to figure out why that position sensor just sort of knocked itself out of alignment. We might have over-torqued something. We'll take a look. But that's cool. And then, of course, you know, F2000, what a brilliant car. And being able to run all three of these is so cool. On the same day as well, just to have the track to yourself, it's fantastic. And I know that nobody gets opportunities like these, so I am glad to have been able to bring you along in spirit, at least, and just give you a little taste of what it takes to run these kinds of cars, and just what it's like to experience them in a little bit in terms of what it's like to live with them. It's fantastic stuff. However, though, we have been told that we have the racetrack through tomorrow morning. So what we're going to do is we're going to organize with the guys, get all three cars running in race boost on the turbo. Actually, no, we're going to go to qualifying boost on the F86, and we're going to do race trim on the F90 and the F2000, and we're just going to do 2 flying laps each. We're going to edit the runs together, and we're going to show you a clock, and we're going to show you which one is actually fastest. So stay tuned for all of that. That's going to be good. Until next time, though, I thank you all very much for watching. FerrariMan601 saying thank you, and of course, we will see you soon.